Let me come to you. I mean, Issah, I mean, your party clearly you are satisfied with the 19 rerun that is taking place now, but the point that the NPP makes, which many will find very worrying, is the fact that the commission has, at every turn, indicated quite clearly that it had to complete the coalition. And at the last update, even in Parliament, they said that, well, there were 3 outstanding stations. Now, how come they are now going to do 19? And there are those who make the point that the conditions are simply not the same, in that if you are going to vote today, the way people may vote will be different from if they were voting for you as they did in Sagnarigu back in December of 2024.
Okay, so let me begin this way. I think now there is some level of convergence between the MPP and the NDC in terms of the competence level of the commission. We have all now come to realize that the Electoral Commission have taken Ghanaians for granted. Look, the survival of our democracy rests with the Electoral Commission, even more than the courts, because oftentimes change of leadership or elections have led to civil wars in many countries and even military takeovers because of consequences of bad elections. And several courts have always made it known that the threshold for delivering justice in an election petition is to maintain peace. Let's take the journey with this Electoral Commission. There was already a precedent on this of citizens of this country without representation. This is not the first time. You remember in 2020, a day to the election, they had brought a press release indicating that the people of SAL can no longer vote and have a representative in Parliament. And this was done for 4 good years for the people of SAL. And up till now, there is no punishment for this ill decision that they took, or the poor decision that they took. Now, coming back to Ablekuma North, I think that we can agree that despite the incompetence delivered by the Electoral Commission, we can all agree that it's a win-win situation for us. Because as a party, we had done our own coalition, and we knew that we had won the election. Like you rightly said, even your studio or your station, you had representative at the coalition center. Madam Evelyn was legitimately declared by the presiding officer. However, the law permits for people to disagree with the election results declared by the Electoral Commission. And so I don't have any problem with that. Once the Constitution has granted them that right, I don't have a problem with that. But subsequent to that, the EC agreed with the MPP to do a coalition because the head office has set aside the declaration made by the presiding officer. Then they started springing some scanned copies of pink sheets. It also demonstrates the lack of capacity of the commissioners because you are the examiner. Let's take it like you are conducting an exams. You finish the exam, students wrote the exam, submitted the results to you. You don't have the original copy of the results, yet political parties are sending you scanned copies. That is lack of capacity. So I'm saying that, so when the MPP started bringing us copies of scanned pink sheets, we could authenticate some and disagree with many. That was how come we said we were only accepting minus 37 polling stations. The Electoral Commission did not heed to our counsel and advice. And we had told them that if this is not handled properly, it can lead to chaos. And if you remember, the reason for them not completing the coalition exercise was a result of security issues. That all they need is the security provision by the Interior Ministry, isn't it? So that is the consequence of organizing a poor election. So for me, this is a win-win situation for even the MPP. Because initially, the NDC was demanding about 60+ police stations to be struck out. We narrowed it down to our 37. You wanted 3, now it's set at 19. I agree with you that circumstances may differ in terms of the period. Yeah. I agree.
because I mean it potentially changes
the dynamics.
And I mean I was having a discussion with someone, and I mean for those of you who may have studied a bit of psychology and everything, I mean voter psychology.
Yes.
I mean even the performance of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama in the last 6 months,
yes,
all of that potentially weighs in on the mind of the voter who walks into the box, as against that time when he's going to vote, when the factors were completely different.
Yes. So, but you see, let's assume that voters are rational. If you look at the freedom concept of elections, sometimes voters take decisions as at a particular moment due to various economic reasons and other reasons that you are talking about. But my point is that just oppose that with the alternative. The alternative is chaos. Is that what we want? The democracy of this country should not be jeopardized because of Ablekuma North alone. So if a free platform or a fair platform has been created in 19 polling stations, political parties have been given representative or the right of their representative to monitor the entire process in terms of printing of ballot papers, transport of ballot papers, and even election monitoring. And the conduct of the election is done transparently and clearly. I don't think it should call for anything.
Okay.
I trust that the MPP, their candidate, since the issue might have been so close with the people, our candidate, who I know, has already even started moving because of the set date. So whoever is closer to the people wins. But I'm worried about the public trust and credibility to the Electoral Commission. That is why I'm part of the group that says that there must be that level of easy accountability.
I mean, how do you respond to those, and I'll let you make that point I mean, in a bit, but how do you respond to those who blame you, the political parties? I mean, they make the point that now you've shifted the whole fight to the coalition centers. I mean, we saw it at Ablekuma North. I remember Okaikwe, the coalition was completely scattered. The same thing at Nsaoma Dwejiri. And they say that it is you, the parties, that have made it nearly impossible. At Okaikwe, for instance, our reporter had videos of the sheets and everything that were being collated completely vandalized, destroyed. They were kicking it around. It was like watching a primary school activity. And they make the point that how then do you blame the EC when now your supporters, they destroy everything and the EC does not even have access to sheets?
So you see, to understand this issue, you need to, like I have gone through an election, you need to understand the genesis that led to this conclusion. In 2020, in fact, in 2013 petition, the Electoral Commission told us that elections are won. The Supreme Court judges told us that the elections are won at what? The polling stations. So we took the matter to the polling stations. However, if an election is over, the polling station results are collated in one tally sheet. You, the political party individual polling sheets, does not constitute any legal basis. It is that of the Electoral Commission. So that is where voter manipulation happens at the collation center. In fact, in one of my polling stations in Sagnarigu, though we largely voted for NDC, I had about 443 votes as against my opponent, who had 86. They gave me 386 votes instead of 436 votes. So if you leave the collation to be done by the Electoral Commission, that is the fate you suffer. You saw what happened in Techiman South in 2020.
Yeah.
When we realized that there was that level of voter manipulation and transpositional errors, members of the party besieged the place to ensure confidence in the system. What did we see? We lost about 8 people. So this provided the background as to why you saw massing up at coalition centers. So we had now taken the fight from polling stations, follow it up to the ladder to the coalition center. It doesn't even end there. From the coalition center, a set of teams will also move it to the regional coalition center, and then there's another team at the national. So there's always a level of cross-checking and making sure that we are satisfied with any outcome that comes. And look, let me tell you this. Once processes are fair and transparent, people are easily, they accept the outcomes. But once they suspect some flaws and manipulations, you will never get a favorable outcome.
Okay.
So now I was building a point on public trust.
Yes.
Look, President Akufo-Addo did wrong to this country. He committed a cardinal sin on our democracy. We thought initially that electoral commissioners over the world are independent constitutional bodies that guarantees the participation of citizens through a civic duty. So you must create that level of independence for them to do their job dispassionately. President Akufo-Addo came and set that standard, that whoever appoints an electoral commissioner, the commissioners owe that allegiance and duty to serve the appointing authorities. We didn't know that. And that is how come when Dr. Farijan was appointed, he saw it through all transitions. President Rawlings, President Mills, President Kufuor, all worked with the electoral commissioner. What did we see during the time of Madam Charlotte Osei? In that case, Madam Charlotte Osei had declared election results in favor of the MPP. But with this notion that they must get her out because the person was appointed by President Mahama. That set this bad precedent on always ever any decline in public confidence and trust in the Electoral Commission. So for me, Jean Mensah has, we all know some of the mistakes that she did in the 2020 and the 2024 elections. And the Supreme Court aiding her to abscond from accountability when she could have resolved some of these issues that were, if she had entered the witness box. So these issues that we are bringing could have been addressed in 2024. But she absconded. So for me, I'm one of the people that is of the view that the commissioners, some of them, we need to take a real look at them, whether they are fit for purpose moving into the 2028 elections.